This episode of The Horror Basement could be brought by you. If you'd like to advertise on the Horror Basement podcast for a small fee, get in contact with us at TennesseeHorrorNews@gmail.com.
Check out Nightmare Toys for all your horror collectible needs at nightmaretoys.com.
Hi, I'm Bill Mosley, and you're in the Horror Basement with Jim Jam and Johnny Leroy. Lick my plate, you dog dick.
Welcome to the Horror Basement.
What the fuck was that?
I am one of your hosts, Johnny Leroy. And as
got-
always,
he's
we
got-
got Jim Jam over here with us.
He's got a new voice.
So that's Jim Jam.
Yeah, Jim Jam here.
So guys, on today's podcast, we got Liam O'Donnell, and what a great interview it is. It's really good. You're going to be really excited to hear this. Trust me. Lots of information and stuff.
Yeah, a lot of Far Beyond Skyline.
Yeah. But, guys, so go check the merch page out on tnhorror.com.
Yes.
Scary Face Radio, Stitcher,
Also,
SoundCloud, Blueberry.
we
iTunes,
just got
Google
approved to be on Scream Radio.
Yes. We don't know when that'll go up, but we will be on Scream Radio as well. And go follow us on the Twitter
Facebook,
and all that. You can hit me up
Instagram.
on Twitter and Instagram
Vero,
at Johnny Leroy, Leroy. And it's Johnny.Leroy on Instagram and whatever TN Jim Jam guy over here.
and on Twitter it's TN Jim Jam. You can follow me, and then of course follow TN Horror News on Twitter.
Yeah.
And yeah,
You know, hit us up on the social media if you want to get in contact with us and all that good stuff.
hit our website up for sure.
Yeah, go check out. We're going to talk about Beyond Skyline in this podcast. So if you haven't watched it, go to Netflix, watch it, because there will be some spoilers. Go watch it. Go watch the first one, Skyline. Go rent it from your local movie place, and watch that shit.
Hell
So
yeah.
you don't get this ruined for you, because it's a good movie.
Hopefully within the next couple of years we'll get the whatever it's going to be called, the third
Yeah,
Skyline
because
movie.
they're really good movies, and you like sci-fi. And this second one has a little bit of gore.
So more of a horror.
Some people getting ripped apart and stabbed, and more deaths, which is good because it's rated R.
Fuck PG-13.
Well, you can't say fuck PG-13. The Goonies couldn't have been a rated R movie.
Man, I'm talking about horror movies.
I know, I'm just fucking with you.
But yep. So
Away we go. All right, guys. So on today's podcast, we have Liam O'Donnell, director, writer, Beyond Skyline, also,
visual effects.
and
That's why this movie is so fucking badass, by the way.
Liam. We appreciate you coming on, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, guys.
As you noticed, Jim Jam loves this fucking movie, Beyond Skyline.
Man,
But first, before we get into the movie.
Thank you, Jim Jam.
Before we get into the movie, what inspired you to get into writing, and getting into writing, did that inspire you to direct your first film?
Yeah, I mean, to go all the way back, I'd say probably the first stuff that I really inspired me to write would probably be like Michael Crichton back in like fourth grade. You know, I think I was born in '82, so Jurassic Park and T2, that period was pretty formative, and I felt like after seeing Jurassic Park and there's a book about this, and then reading a lot of Michael Crichton was when I first started like thinking like, I'd like to be a writer at some point. And then obviously understanding and falling in love with like movies like T2 and watching the behind the scenes and being like, oh, that's a job. Someone makes that. So that all kind of like tied together as something that, could possibly, want to do one day. But yeah, like, and then the whole story of then coming out here, the unusual thing about, my situation was that my dad's younger brother, he wrote a book about one of their cases. Like my family's they're all kind of like lawyers in Massachusetts. And my grandfather at the time had a kind of famous case against the Boston Police Department. And it was a wrongful death case that ended up, becoming kind of a riveting story. And they won and they beat the police department there, which never really happened.
Yeah.
And so he wrote a book about that, and it got turned into like a CBS made-for-TV movie in like 1986, starring Richard Crenna as my grandfather and Dylan Baker as my dad. So like it was just like a weird, showbiz adjacent thing that grew up like, oh yeah, there's a movie about your family in a weird way. And so then my uncle Lawrence ended up going on to write on The West Wing, and he actually worked in DC. And then I went down to work in DC when I was in college to do an internship, and he was filming his show at the time, which is called Mr. Sterling with Josh Brolin in like 2002. And so that was the first time I got to go on a set, and I was like, like 19, 20. And that was like, oh wow, this is really cool. I didn't know what I was going to do with really my life at that point. And that was one of those kind of like, oh wow, this is the best job there is. And so after that, it was just trying to figure out like how to get out there and where I fit in all of it. And I ended up always just, being in some sort of adjacent relationship with visual effects. My best friend that I moved out to LA with was a designer at Rhode Island School of Design, and he does a bunch of motion graphics, a bunch of concept art. And so together we kind of ended up meeting Greg and Colin Strauss, who own Hydraulics Visual Effects. And I started, pitching them ideas and writing with them and working with the designers there and kind of, always kind of writing for visual effects and thinking about creative ways to use visual effects for a story.
Well, them visual effects really helped out on Beyond Skyline because, like Yeti said, you got a Michael Bay looking movie on a $20 million budget?
It's actually closer to 15.
Okay, well, that's even,
yeah.
It's even more. That's even better for you for the style of the movie because.
Thank you. I mean, that's a tip of the cap to my producers, and Matthew Chouse and also Greg and Colin Strauss, who own Hydraulics. I mean, you could never do the movie for the number if a VFX company didn't really produce it themselves. So it is kind of, there's a lot of sweat equity in there.
Man, like I said, this should have been should have been a summer blockbuster. Making $100 million on the theater. I mean, it was something that we obviously we took a real big swing with, but I'm just really happy that people like you are finding it now and enjoying it, especially for what it is, because it's just meant to be an entertaining film. That's all we really wanted to do, is just have as much fun and to entertain you as much as possible. It just came on Netflix, I think the 15th. Yeah. So that's been this awesome, sort of, I guess it's like the third window, because we did a bunch of festivals, and then you do limited VOD, Blu-ray, and then now the Netflix, which it feels like, it's just the perfect, it's the perfect platform for a movie like this. And it's been a lot of fun seeing different people's reactions.
All right, let me ask you this. The first one, just Skyline, was PG-13,
yes.
And it had a wider release. Do you think the R rating shrunk that release for y'all? I mean, it's a better movie at an R rating. Don't get me wrong, because the PG-13 could have been way better, because that one didn't get the critics and the people didn't care for it as much. Like, it's got a lower rating.
Yeah.
And Beyond Skyline, everybody's like, this movie's way better. Do you think the R rating affected it in any way?
I mean, it's possible. I think the first one, it was really, really difficult to get the PG-13 rating. So I co-wrote and produced the first one and kind of came up with the idea with Greg Strauss. That was like we had like a lunch meeting and everything kind of took off from this one idea of just, watching the world end outside his windows because he had bought that condo. And so it was that was sort of just a very crazy lightning in a bottle situation where we got picked up by, a Relativity, and they, were so hungry to make it a hit that they spent a ton of money on this release for it, which is why we, ended up making a decent amount of box office overseas and, eventually led to the sequel. But the sequel was made independently. It wasn't Relativity, was out of the picture at that point in Universal. So we kind of made the sequel ourselves, and then it would have been like, a different distributor to come in and do it. So even being in that situation is kind of unique. It's not like the normal, like Hollywood greenlighting a sequel and doing it at the place that made the first one. I think the R rating, I would say it is more to do with the fact that the landscape changed so much in the past, 7 years for kind of these mini VFX sort of blockbusters where we were a pretty unique thing in 2010. And now, there's been a lot more of them, and it's kind of like this movie's a little bit of a unicorn. It doesn't really fit in any box. So it seems like, the way of doing the limited and then kind of really focusing on the streaming, because Netflix actually bought the movie before any of the other distributors did. Oh, so that was really who we sold it to. And then everything else, we kind of had to figure out windows to make it in there. So it kind of is just fits for what today's, release is, especially with the R rating. I think that all kind of worked out the way it should.
Well, the R rating made it way better. Because
honestly, the first film, the original cut of it before the MPAA, I thought was way better, and we had to cut 3 or 4 of the best shots of the movie. So that was pretty heartbreaking. So I kind of went in on the sequel like, guys, the concept is brain ripping aliens. Yeah. We can't do that again. And so I was pretty adamant about that from the beginning. And then casting someone like Frank, I don't know if you noticed, but he really likes to use the F word. So it would have been really difficult to kind of edit that without any F-bombs in the movie at all.
You would have had to dub over it like freak.
Yeah. Yeah, the TV version of the movie is going to be pretty funny.
You need to do it like a Canadian one too, like Frick.
Yeah, Frick.
Yeah, we kind of got a few. It was like we got a few of those lines in there, and then. But I think just with Frank, they're just going to have to. I actually prefer to just hear a beep or like a mute than to have the fake. So hopefully, I haven't done. They never sent it to me to review, so hopefully it's not terrible.
There already is a censored version.
No, I mean they kind of you send that off to delivery and they just do it. Especially in an indie movie like this, we actually did way more. But you kind of deliver everything. I didn't get to review the dubs from all the different territories. They just kind of know how to handle that.
Oh, that's cool.
Also, is there an uncut version of the first one out there, or will there ever be?
There isn't. I don't know. That's a good question. I just because of how much money it takes to kind of refinish a movie and do the mix, it would have to be a real groundswell of interest, which I don't think currently is there. But yeah, it's not I don't think it's a drastic enough ton of new footage. It was really I guess anyone who's listening to this has seen it, but the brain rips specifically, the lead character, Eric Balfour's character at the end, it was in a close up, really like devastating to I always thought that was really fun to have like the lead of the movie just get their brain ripped out in the last like 3 or 4 minutes, and like it was surprising. Like on the wide it plays in the wide shot now with a bunch of backlight behind it, so which was effective, but it was something about doing it kind of in a medium close up to just be like, oh yeah, he's not getting out of that. It just really was. And then it cuts right to her being like, it was just a nice moment that I always am a little sad that is gone. And the same with in the parking garage when that the gentleman got his brain ripped out. There was it was just a cooler shot. A couple little things like that, but it wasn't like this movie. I could do an extended cut of Beyond that would be, probably 5 minutes of extra stuff and a bunch of other kills, just because we shot so many alien kills and martial arts stuff that like I could do kind of an extended release to it. The first Skyline was we kind of wrote it lean and we shot it lean, and there wasn't a ton of extra stuff. We did some reshooting and shuffling all in the first act, but I don't think any of the stuff that we omitted would be anything we'd want to really put back.
Well, one thing I gotta applaud you on is the second movie, because you know how sequels or whatever you want to call them don't really give anything to storylines a lot of times. But you did, because you expanded on what the aliens are, like what they're doing, right. Like, and it just made it like, and watching the first one and then you watch the second one, you're like, oh, okay. Now then you go back and you think about the Skyline, and you're like, oh shit, because you get to see the inside of the alien and how it just expanded on the universe, I guess you'd call it. And Skyline universe.
And you actually get to see the alien in this one. I don't think you really got to see it in the first one, did you?
No. It's one of those things that, the first one was like we kept expanding the ending because I think it was a much shorter kind of Twilight Zone thing where she like woke up on a ship and there was someone said her name off screen and you're like, what? And obviously that was just like, a placeholder in the script. And then before we shot it, we went through and the night before, I remember it getting way bigger. Excuse me. And then, once we're even in post, and so much of that just becomes kind of a CG movie at the very end. So we kind of kept playing with it and building it out. And so then that kind of like changed stuff earlier in the movie. We're like, okay, well, this is the pilot. Let's see the pilot inside the tanker. And so they did give you a little hint of him when the soldiers attack and they shoot the tanker, which is the big kaiju alien, and they kind of blow its face off. And there's like a little thing inside there with these beady eyes. But I noticed like a lot of people just didn't pick up on it. But it's kind of cool. I mean, we redesigned it, but that is the same kind of creature that we're using in part 2 as like, these drones that our brains get put into.
Well, you speak of CGI, so it's going to lead me into, I can segue into this. Our buddy Yeti that wrote the review, he wanted us, this was, did y'all go to, was it Thailand or?
Indonesia.
Did you go to the temples? Like, I'm not sure what the temples are called over there. I don't know the official name of it.
It's a temple. It's called Prambanan and Sewu, and it's actually 2 different temples in Indonesia that are about a mile apart.
Okay, I've seen
but they're kind of on this. They're on the same park. So you'll see there's like 2 different styles. Is the bigger ones where they walk in. We stitched the 2 temples together digitally in that shot where there's like a wide shot where they're walking past the temples and they look to see the other one. Those are the 2 temples that are like a mile apart, and we kind of put them all together to make it feel like, more of a remote location. Because like, honestly, if you turn the camera to the right, there's a city right there.
Oh, okay.
So it's all a little bit of trickery, but yeah, we only had a couple days at the temple. And we couldn't really shoot a ton of stuff at Prambanan because it's just it's it's a UNESCO site and there's a lot of restrictions. Seiwu, they let us do a little bit more, but they basically were like, we don't want to do any fighting scenes here.
Okay, that's what he was curious, like on the fighting scenes. Like, did y'all have to come back and like rebuild it or CGI?
Yeah, I mean, they kind of, as the days went, so the temples, Prambanan and Seiwu, they had a bunch of restrictions of what we could and couldn't do there. They kind of let us do more at Seiwu as we, showed that we were, respectful. And we kind of got to do the spinning shot around them there. That's on the actual location. And we did a couple of, rehearsals with the guys there. But they didn't really, and our suits, the actual alien suits, weren't ready yet. So we didn't have those on the location stuff. So the solution, and another problem was that it rained like 2 days of the 4 that I was shooting there. So I didn't get a ton of on location footage. And we needed to obviously have the suits in there, or else we're going to have CG aliens for the whole end fight. And that was going to be really, really expensive. There's no way we'd be able to finish it. So we built a backlot set at the studio in Indonesia that was just kind of like a corner of that temple. And so within that whole fight, we're kind of stitching back and forth between location footage to backlot footage with the suits. So it'll be like anytime you're wide, that's a CG alien, and anytime you move in, it's a suit. And that sort of dictated a lot of what we could and couldn't get away with.
That's one thing, the suit, like I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, is that CGI? Because it looks like a real suit. And then, at the end of it, the bloopers, and I was like, oh, that shit is a real suit.
Oh, that was funny.
and I enjoyed the bloopers. I enjoy bloopers.
One of the guys tripped or fell or something.
Yeah, when he come out,
Fred said something to me. You fucking idiot.
Yeah. So, he was like, "You're the dumbest alien I've ever seen. You're gonna kill us all on that one." And I was like, "Hell yeah, that's fucking funny."
You're the stupidest fucking monster that I've ever seen. It was one of those things where I was laughing quite a bit, like just behind the camera all the time, just because there's just something sort of, to me, funny about Frank talking to this alien. So I wanted to kind of capture that sense of humor that was kind of behind the whole movie in a way. But yeah, that was one of those things where it was like we had been editing the movie for so long. We had this whole folder of bloopers, and it was like right towards the end of delivery. It was like, let's look at this, because I also love like the end of Predator when it's just the cast kind of like callback, end credit. So it's like a little bit of a mix between that with the blooper reel to get. Because I just had a lot of affection for the cast that we got to work with, and wanted everyone to like, all the people that die, you kind of get to see them again on your way out of the movie. So
that's what I liked. I'm glad you put the bloopers in, because otherwise you'd have to get the DVD or Blu-ray and watch the blooper scenes then or whatever. But I was glad, because is it out on Blu-ray?
Yeah. It is on Blu-ray, but the domestic version is just a bare bones. It's just the movie. The German Steelbook has the making of and deleted scenes, but thankfully they are on YouTube, and pretty easy to find.
Well, I'm gonna have to look that up then, because I want to see that.
I'm actually just thinking about recording a commentary for deleted scenes, because I didn't even know it was on YouTube. And then I was like, I'd like to explain why these are deleted. So I probably will post that on the Beyond Skyline Facebook page at some point next week.
Oh, hell sweet. Yeah. We'll have to look for that. But I got to say this. The reason I heard about this is from the movie Crypt. I saw
that you tweeted that. That's awesome.
So yeah, I heard your interview with them, and that's how I heard about Skyline. But then I remembered my wife watched this a while back. Back in the day, it was on Sci-Fi. I thought Skyline, the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I remember it too from there. But I listened to the movie Crypt, and I heard your interview with them. So
that was a lot of fun, and I was really honored to be on that show, because there's been so many really good interviews on that I was like a little psyched myself up for that one,
Oh yeah.
But I'm glad that you that you enjoyed it. Yeah, no, the first Skyline was like one of the first. It also was on Netflix like from 2010 to like 2013. It had like a 3-year run after the movie. Maybe 2011, I would say. Yeah, because we came out at the end of 2010. And then it finally started playing on Sci-Fi and Spike. And actually, that was when I kind of got inspired to start seriously working on part 2. It was kind of funny, like, it was such a bad experience when the first one came out, and just a critical rejection of it, I guess would be a word. And so didn't really think about it. We'd get calls every now and then like, you're interested? And sure, we have a treatment. Pay us some money, we'll write it. And then it just basically, came to that point in like 2013 when I saw it again on TV, and I really enjoyed it in that setting, and I really enjoyed the aliens, and I was like, I think I could kind of get a sequel to this made, and at the same time kind of get to do everything I want to do in a movie. Take advantage of the fact that the first one, made a lot of money, but it wasn't exactly beloved, so I could change it up a lot, Yeah. So I felt like it was just a perfect opportunity to kind of, especially for a first timer, because Greg and Colin had figured out so many things in the first movie, and they did such great design work and kind of, especially with the aliens and the light, there was a visual palette already created, which when you're a writer, that's not necessarily, the first thing that you're thinking of or your strength. Whereas those guys have been doing visual effects, for 25 years. So it was a great situation to kind of be standing on their shoulders from a design standpoint, and then kind of getting to steer things in a new direction.
Hell of a job, my friend.
Thanks, guys.
You set it up for a third movie. I mean,
that's
obviously. Right. So
you're gonna have to. You're gonna even have to go further with it.
Yeah. What are you gonna name this? Like Skyline Destiny, because it's Rose's destiny to destroy.
I'll tell you that I just finished a draft 2 weeks ago. I'm doing some producer notes right now. The title I have right now is Skylines, because it's very much a sort of aliens type mission movie to an alien planet, and you're seeing a different skyline. So I thought it was it was one of those things where I toyed with that name for this one, and it probably Skylines might have made more sense for part 2, and then Beyond Skyline might have been a better title for the third.
Yeah.
But it's
can't do it now.
Yeah, can't do it now, and I kind of like just not doing a 2 or a 3. Try to make each one really unique and a standalone in a way. Even part 3, it does focus on Rose and Trent, but I'm trying to make it so that you could watch it and enjoy it without having seen even the last one. So and it's again a very different sort of movie. It's sort of like I said, aliens. It's much more sci-fi. Like the first one started very, very grounded, and at the very end kind of showed its nerd card and said like, oh yeah, this is actually a really nerdy sci-fi thing. And then I feel like part 2 we kind of did that around the 30-minute mark. Like, this is some pretty nerdy sci-fi that you're about to get into, and then this one it's like page 1. So yeah, I mean there's it's been fun. I'm writing this thing. I'm like, this thing started as this crazy thing to shoot in Greg Strauss's apartment, and now I'm like writing this little space opera. But we'll see what happens. I think it's been awesome to see that we've been trending or whatever on Netflix and stuff. So I think part 3 would probably be a similar type of situation for part 2, and probably be a streaming or something like that sort of movie. But fingers crossed.
Hey, is Beyonder a word?
Beyonder.
Skyline.
I would say like Skyline and Beyond.
Pantera, so maybe it'd be like far beyond Skyline.
Skyline and Beyond or something. Well, I'm just going to keep picking your brain about the new one because I like getting details on stuff. But is it going to be, because the aliens seem really industrial, like, mechanical, and so would their habitat or where they live be like really?
What, kind of like Transformers?
No, just really industrial. Yeah, like really industrial, and like everything's just, I don't know, because like when they come up into the ship, it's all really like, it looks oily. I don't know if it's oil, the dark.
Interesting. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
it is,
would that be everywhere?
Well, it's like a black KY jelly that we splattered on everyone. Actually, if you look at the making of clip on YouTube, there's some behind the scenes where we're just using a fire hose to douse all the extras. That was pretty funny. But yeah, it is like, it's a weird mixture of slimy and then also shiny, right?
Yeah,
it's a little bit of Aliens, it's a little bit Transformers. Still have to figure out a lot of those sort of bigger design questions as far as part 3 and what's going on the planet. You can hear my 5-year-old throwing that temper tantrum in the back.
That's all good.
But yeah, I think as of right now, I'm basing it a lot off of what was on that ship, and kind of imagining that as a.
That's what I was just sitting there thinking, like, just the oil. Because it looked like oil to me. Like, I don't know why. I just assumed it was because like they're just sitting in it.
Frank requested like a special type of one for his skin. He didn't want the mass one, and so his was like a little thicker and oilier. So when you see his face when he wakes up, that's what gives you that like oil spill look.
Yeah, because I was like, damn, does the ship fucking leak oil? Like, what's going on with
They
this
need to fix their shit.
Or do they keep them in that so they can't move around as much? Like it's
slippery as hell.
Yeah, like you try to get up and run, well, your brain's getting sucked out. Fuck you.
Yeah. We kind of it's almost like a big like a slaughterhouse. So there's a lot of shit everywhere and blood and we kind of, it's like the black goo is also sort of what their blood is. So there's sort of this and those things are machines. So yeah, I guess you're right. That is sort of oily industrial vibe.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to rewrite the script now.
Damn, Johnny, you fucked it up.
Well, that's what I got out of it because they're industrial as hell. Like they're all machines. So I mean, I was just curious.
That's a great point.
Don't change it for Johnny.
You don't have to change it. I was just
it's
what
all
I
there.
see.
It's all there. He's dead on.
Well, do you have one of the claws? Where he shoves his arm in the thing. I don't know what you'd call the thing, and then he gets
the attachment. We only have one.
What?
Like this is like I said, it was very. We had a we had the Hero plastic vinyl claw with the Hero camera one, and then we made a stunt one that was kind of made of foam.
Yeah.
That. If he was fighting with it not to be dangerous. And then we also made one because the claw was supposed to move in and out.
Yeah, that's what
more. And it kind of doesn't really do that as much as it did in the script. So we had this other one that had like a stump and for that one shot. But then, even when Eco does that head stab, that was supposed to kind of be more of a jackhammer, but it was just a really expensive visual effect. So
well, I thought it was kind of like a jackhammer though, where it was
good. And
driving back and forth in his head. I was like,
to me, I didn't think the blade, like you don't actually see the blade sliding in and out like a jackhammer the way I had imagined it, but that was the general idea. But yeah, that I have the Hero one in my garage, but the other ones all kind of fell apart and are all deteriorated. But yeah, I still got it. And it's kind of in bad shape. There's a couple of the pieces are kind of hanging together, but it's still kind of the prized possession.
Well, since there's a part 3, you're gonna have to get one made even better, right?
Yeah. We need to get. I got a new one for Rose that I think kind of use her unique abilities.
That's cool. I'm interested in seeing her abilities actually.
Yeah. she needs to be able to fire on the go.
Yeah,
fire. So I mean, they can shoot. Doof, doof.
Exactly.
Well, I noticed you said something about Predator earlier, so that got me there. What was it you did with Aliens versus Predator Requiem?
Well, that was like I was like 24, and they got Greg and Colin Strauss. They got the script sent to them to direct. They'd been big music video and commercial directors back then, and so I was working for them as sort of an in-house writer and development guy, and working on those music videos and commercial treatments. So when we would get scripts, I would read the scripts as well, and I'd come up with notes and just kind of work on them with them. And so that's what I did, before they went into pitch to try to get the job. And I worked on that really, really hard for a couple of weeks. And then they eventually did get it, and they kind of brought me on as sort of a consultant to just be their in-house guy to work on story ideas, or in the case of this, like there was 3 big action sequences. There was the sewer sequence, hive sequence, and the rooftop sequence. And so on set, like I would be in the trailer working with the previs artist, Joshua Cortez, who ended up being the co-writer of Skyline. And we would kind of be working on those 3 sequences and any other studio notes and kind of going back and forth with them while they were on set. So it was pretty much my film school, and this kind of awesome opportunity to have like a front row seat to the making of a movie. And it happened to star, my 2 favorite creatures. It ended up, the tough thing about that whole process is that the movie ended up coming out like, the DI is just way too dark. And I've seen that movie 140 times with the correct DI, and whatever criticisms of it, it's like it just really stinks when you can't really see the movie that you wanted to make. So that ended up being kind of a tough experience. I know I watched it again in like a few months back, and with the new TVs, like I was able to kind of correct the level of the darkness on it, and I could kind of see it on the way that it was supposed to be intended. And so it was fun to revisit it. It was the first time I'd seen it in about 10 years.
Oh, wow. And then also I saw for visual effects was a sequence from Iron Man 2.
Yeah. Iron Man 2 was really cool. I mean, this is like right after the first one, and obviously compared to where Marvel is now, it was a very different time. But we were super excited that they sent out a bunch of this packet to a bunch of visual effects companies and said, here's this sequence that we want to do. It's called the Feeble sequence, and it's going to be, a montage of all these other countries trying to do their own Iron Man technology and failing. And so we were like, great. And they're like, yeah, you guys, shoot, do some tests, and we'll talk about it. And we just, me, Greg, and Colin, and some of the other guys at Hydraulics, we just, wrote down the sequences and cast our friends and went out into the desert and shot like 4 or 5 of them and finished all the VFX and sent it in. And so they were like, no one else, I guess, had done it or done it to that level. So they were, we ended up, meeting with Favreau and Kevin Feige, and, we talked about doing a couple of different ideas, but in the end, they ended up just using the footage that we shot and just put it right into the movie. So that was a pretty cool opportunity.
In your opinion, which one's better, the first or second one?
The first Iron Man, yeah, for sure.
Because they always show the damn second one on TV. I don't know if it's because people like it better or people don't like it as much.
No, I don't think anyone would say that the second one's better, but maybe there are, but I think the first one. I mean, if the first one isn't the first one, then there's no Marvel universe. That was I saw the first one 2 times in theaters. It was a phenomenon.
I didn't get to watch it in theater, but I just love the first suit that he makes. So I mean,
yeah,
big clunky suit.
I'm actually a huge Iron Man 3 fan, which is funny because I remember making a ton of money, but being divisive with hardcore fans. But I love Shane Black, so I really enjoyed that one too.
Yeah. The Marvel has definitely stepped up big time.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen Infinity War yet. I gotta go. I think go Tuesday with my son.
Watch that
one,
looking forward to it.
Well,
me too.
On your IMDb, there's something for directing. We got The Last Savage, the Shun one, and The Bay. Or The Bay is an older movie, right?
Yeah, The Bay was just something that Hydraulics helped do some visual effects on through one of the producers, the executive producer, Brian Cavanaugh Jones, is the executive producer on Skyline. And he brought me the script to The Bay, and I really liked it and kind of championed it and said Hydraulics, should work on it. And it ended up being kind of this cool, very different take on the found footage movie with kind of an environmental message. So that's one that I'm happy that I was able to play like a tiny little part in, but I never even got to meet the director or anything. It was just one of those cool, like, oh yeah, I'll take a co-producing credit. And then, so The Last Savage is something I wrote after filming in Indonesia and getting to work with, Iko Uwais and Yayan Ruin, like, and the stars of The Raid and The Raid 2. Just awesome experience to not only kind of work with them, but also just film and edit and everything martial arts. It was like, I just became immediately, it kind of fell into my lap, to be honest with you. With the movie, the third act was going to be a war film. And then once we started scouting over in Indonesia, some of the producers that we met over there were like, well, what do you think about the Raid guys being in it? And I was like, well, they would be awesome. A huge fan of those movies, huge fan of them. And I still wanted to just cast them to be in the war version. But then once I talked to them, they said, we'd love to choreograph some fights for you. And then I was like, oh my God, sure. Yeah. Wow. Let's do this. And then I talked to Frank and was like, you immediately, you need to have a get to know you fight with Iko. And he's a very avid boxer and loves fighting in general. So he was really excited to do that. And that became like our first 2 days of the shoot. So, long story short, just I wanted to write something because this becomes kind of martial arts movie in the back half. I wanted to do something, from the ground up that was a sci-fi martial arts take, kind of inspired by Mad Max, the Matrix, and a little bit of John Wick for good measure. And so that's something that I'm super passionate about. And I started working with a new writer who's really awesome. I did my draft, and I kind of wanted to take it to the next level. And I talked to the producers. I was like, I was inspired by one of these movies. I'd really love to get that guy to do a pass before we send this to actors. And luckily, they were able to figure that out. So I don't think I can announce the name yet, but hopefully will very soon because it's super exciting.
So I guess from all that, this is pre-production still, right? Yeah,
we're working on the script right now.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
And then also Blackened.
Blackened is just one of those IMDb credits that's been up there forever. It's actually the first script I ever wrote. It was called Singularity back when I first started it, and I wanted to do this just gives you an idea of like how I'm always like the first script I ever really, really wrote and finished. The first page, it had the big bang, the big bang of the universe. And at the end, the entire universe crunched in on itself and then had another big bang and it reset everything. And that was just like, I think it was like 145 page script. So it's gone through all these many iterations where it became kind of just a black hole movie instead of trying to do a movie about the Big Bang and the Big Crunch. And so I've written a bunch of drafts of that over the years, and it became something I think that still could be cool as sort of like a black hole forming in the middle of the desert, and they have to stop it before it reaches Los Angeles. And so I actually would have to go back and look and see what the state of that one is, but haven't worked on it since before Beyond Skyline. But it still seems like it'd be a fun movie to make at some point.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, definitely. I guess you just got to get these others done first, right?
Yeah, that one's a bigger budget for sure. And then the other one is the shunned one is something that a friend of mine, Chris White, who produced the VHS films, and he brought that to me. It's basically, I kind of call it like the Angel of Death Wish. It's based on a comic from Alan Robert, who is also the lead singer of Life of Agony. And it's kind of an interesting take on a new take. It's not based on anything like Catholic or Judeo-Christian about like guardian angels, and pretty much the guy's daughter is murdered in the kind of the wrong place, wrong time by a bunch of bad dudes, and her guardian angel is so upset about it that he kind of betrays all the rules and ends up possessing her father and going on this, quest for vengeance. So Angel of Death Wish is what I kind of refer to it as.
Oh, that's cool.
Wow. So
yeah.
A lot of stuff coming up that looks like it's going to be obviously after Beyond Skyline.
Yeah. Be far beyond Skyline.
Far beyond
all the stuff
Skyline.
is like, you kind of, when you attach yourself to, you got to put a bunch of irons in the fire, and you never know, because it is just so hard to get a movie made. I mean, between Skyline to Beyond Skyline, there's so many different projects that we were, trying, and a couple that got really, really close, even got cast with some big names, and they can still just sputter out and die. I mean, there was times on Beyond Skyline where I thought the project was going to die in the middle of filming. It's basically like everything is always kind of stacked against you until the movie is delivered. So you're just always sort of trying to get as many different things up in the air as you can.
Well, in there you said something about Far Beyond Skyline. There's your third movie. Far Beyond Skyline.
That's right.
But yeah. Well, I've enjoyed.
Just keeps going farther and farther beyond, like
even farther beyond Skyline.
Part 4.
We're real
part 4.
fucking far beyond Skyline.
Yeah, really fucking far beyond Skyline.
Light years beyond Skyline.
Yeah. Part 23.
That'd be awesome.
Look, I'm never going to end it. Why would I?
You're dealing with space, so there's no end to it. So
No. If you're looking for closure, go elsewhere. It's not happening.
it's like the song that never ends.
Right.
But
well, that's like what people said recently, where they're like, "You are going to die before you see the last Star Wars movie," and it's kind of the same for Marvel too. It was like that kind of weird realization that, like, oh yeah, these things are gonna, never end. You keep going and going. But
so what are they gonna do for Stan Lee? They're just gonna CGI him in because he's always in the movies.
oh no, that's a good point. They kind of needed a mascot after. He's getting up there.
Well, maybe his son. Does he have a son?
I'm sure he has a son.
I think he has a daughter.
But I'm thankful for you to come on, man. I'm glad you're very open to contacting and talking to people.
Open to share
your
ideas.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I'm very happy to come on. Thank you for having me. I mean, it was a lot of fun. And hopefully, when the next thing, whether it's a Skyline or one of these other, genre mashes that I'm trying to get off the ground, I can come back and talk to you guys again.
Hell yeah.
Sounds good to me.
Well,
awesome.
You have a good rest tonight, and look forward to seeing whatever's else Far Beyond Skyline.
All right, guys. Thank you very much.
All right, have a good one.
All right, take care.
All right, bye.
All right, guys. So, Liam O'Donnell. That's a really good interview. Really nice guy. Willing to share some of his ideas for the new movie. Most people don't want to do that.
Maybe your name that you used.
Maybe what?
Maybe.
Oh,
Some
Skyline
of the
Destiny.
names, yeah.
No, he's already got it. Skylines. But guys, don't forget we're on. We're going to be on Scream Radio.
Yeah, we just got that
approval.
So I don't know when yet, but we'll announce that on.
Yeah, but just
social media.
Heads up.
Scurry Face Radio.
Yeah, Scurry Face Radio at scurryface.com.
I put pictures on the podcast page on the website. So you scroll all the way down, you can click on those, and it will take you right to Scream Radio and Scurry Face Radio.
Yeah, and SoundCloud, YouTube,
Blueberry,
about anywhere
Stitcher
Radio,
anywhere you can post
Google
our
Play,
RSS
iTunes.
feed. If you can get our RSS feed, like Pod Addict, you can do it through there as long as you have a RSS feed. So yeah, about anywhere you can think of.
And hit up the website.
Yeah, please. Go check out all the reviews. Go check out our review for Beyond Skyline by Yeti. Hit that up. And we got merch. Our candle got took down for right now. It's getting redone for some issues. But it's going to be a
better quality.
Smaller candle glass, too.
Oh, is it?
Because the other one was breaking easy.
Oh, is
shipping.
it?
So this one's smaller, so maybe it's less cost on shipping. But anyways, it'll look better, and the wick is better. So that'll be back up soon. But we got shirts, 2 different styles of shirts. If you want a horror basement t-shirt, we can get those made for you.
Yep, only $13, guys.
That's if you're between the small and extra large.
You probably.
And then after that, you get a little bit more price goes up. But anyways, thank y'all for listening.
You can find Jim Jam at TN Horror. Is that what it is? This is Jim Jam TN.
Yeah.
Something like that. And you can hit me up at Johnny Leroy. H and Leroy.
TN Jim Jam.
TN Jim Jam on the Twitter.
Yes. And I really only communicate on Instagram through the Tennessee Horror News page.
Yeah. So hit us up, guys.
Yep. So that's all we got. We out.
Peace.